So session 2, we're going to dive into attachment pain. But before we do that, we're going to do a fun exercise. I want you to just kind of, in your groups, people around you, get 4 or 5 people together. And I want you to make a list of significant songs from your adolescence, high school, college, etc. Secular songs, probably best. But just make a list of songs that just right off the bat you remember as songs that you had. Just get a list of their titles and write the names of those titles in your workbooks. So 5 minutes, go. All right, I know that's a fun exercise for now, and we will circle back to this later on. This is actually just setting the stage for something we'll do at the end of this session, all right? Session 2 is on attachment pain, so it's real important that we begin once again with appreciation. So this time I won't really instruct it, I will just lead you into it. So let's pray. So Jesus, we just ask right now that you would remind us of something we could appreciate. Take us back to our original appreciation this morning if you have more for us, or give us something new, Lord. So we just ask that you would remind each one of us right now of something we could appreciate. Remind us of a time of connection with you or with someone else or something from nature or just anything that helps our heart and our mind remember how good your heart is towards us. So just invite Jesus personally. Jesus, please remind me of something I can appreciate. Pay attention to how your body feels as you focus on your appreciation. And then give it a name, 1, 2, 3 words. And then don't tell the story, just give the name of your appreciation to somebody sitting beside you. All right, that's plenty long for the name. You guys are getting into stories, I can tell. All right, let's backtrack just a little bit just to remind you to set the stage for where we're going. God created us with both the desire and the need for secure attachment with one another. God is a relational community, and sin destroys secure attachment. It's kind of the foundation for where we're going in this session, all right? Well, what I want you to see now is that the absence of consistent joy leads to insecure attachment and brings great pain. Here's the reality that I learned with our first child is, the hardest things about kids is they are relentless. There is never a moment they don't want your engagement. And so even the very best parent fails over and over because even the best parents are still human. They still have limitations. They still have work to do. They still have things, etc. And so the reality is there is no way for any of us to get through infancy without that experience. Now, unfortunately, many of us had that experience not occasionally, but regularly. Now, with that, guess what? We don't remember it because it happened pre-memory. Our brains do not, the hippocampus, the part of our brain that stores memory, as we think of, memory of being able to see the picture, remember the story, etc. That doesn't develop till 2.5, 3 years of age. However, implicit memory starts in utero. And implicit memory is best to think of it in terms of things I know that I don't have to think about knowing. Okay, for example, how many of you thought about walking today? And how many of you just walked? Okay, do you realize what a complex skill walking is? How much like in robotics, they say one of the most difficult things to program and to do in the world of robotics is bipod walking. And yet we all learned how to do that, sometimes or somewhere around a year of age. And we don't remember it. We don't remember learning, but we all remember how to walk, right? Now, some people have had strokes and other things, had to relearn. But that's what implicit memory is. Okay? Implicit memory also stores emotion. It stores felt pain. And so we all have felt pain experiences from our early childhood that we cannot recall in memory, but that we feel. And that's a significant part of attachment pain. And when you begin to understand the reality of attachment pain, people's negative behaviors make much more sense. I mean, think about it. How much sense does it make for someone to drink so much that they throw up, have a massive headache, and hangover the next day? And yet, how many people do that? Repeat, repeat, repeat. How much sense does it make for a man to spend 2 hours looking at porn, only to end up in the pit of shame and then in a horrible place with his wife? Okay, those and other actions make no sense at all unless we look beneath the surface and realize that the purpose of acting out is to help us go to, quote, comfortably numb. Somebody in here, I'm sure, had that on their list, right? Okay? We go to comfortably numb to avoid pain and overwhelming emotions. And the primary pain that we medicate is attachment pain. And much of it comes from pre-memory. Just like we don't remember the times we were left to cry it out in our cribs, or the times our caregivers were too busy to take a break and attune to us, that baby won't remember it. But that baby will remember it as a felt experience because of implicit memory. The absence of attunement and consistent joy leads to insecure attachment and great pain. But it's also important to note that so does damaged attachment. Anytime we bond with anyone on any level, when that relationship changes or ends, we feel attachment pain. So if your father left your family when you were 2, even though you have little or no conscious memory of him, you have attachment pain for him because he is no longer in your life. A child adopted at birth has attachment pain for his or her birth mother, even though the birth mother never held the baby. Because the baby spent 9 months in utero, hearing her heartbeat, flowing with her rhythms, hearing her voice, being connected to her as human inside a human. We all have attachment pain. If your grandmother, who was a significant source of joy for you, died or moved away when you were 6, you will have pain about her absence. It's also important to note that the greater the connection, the greater the pain. The stronger the connection with someone, when that connection is severed or damaged or changes, the greater the connection, the greater the loss. So, for example, if you made a new, quote, best friend the first week of school, and the second week she transferred to a different school, it hurts. You'd be disappointed. But it's easy to understand why you get over that quicker than if your best friend and neighbor since you were 3 moved across the country when you were 12. Or if your mother dies when you are 3, it's devastating. Whatever level you bond with another person determines how much pain you will experience if or when that relationship is lost, damaged, or just is no longer what it used to be. Our brains were not created, designed for broken attachments. Jim Wilder asserts that our brain has no idea what to do with death. And if you think about it, it makes sense. We were created in the garden. Death came later. Okay? When we bond, when we attach, our brain assumes it's forever. Our brain creates a place for each attachment that is exclusive and cannot ever be given to anyone else. Whenever you build a bond with someone, your brain in essence puts up a no parking sign in that place of connection. No one else will ever be able to take his or her place that you created when you bonded and attached to that individual. It's why serial relationships leave people in so much pain. Imagine it this way. A young woman falls head over heels in love with a young man, but when the euphoria, the initial infatuation stage wears off and is no longer able to distract her from her deep attachment pain, she decides, oh, he isn't the one, and moves on to the next guy. Again, the dopamine rush of the new relationship and the euphoria of infatuation make her believe that she is over number one because look how good she feels with number two. But when the drug-induced state of infatuation with number two wears off, guess what comes rushing back in? Her original attachment pain, plus the attachment pain of the loss of relationship number one. So what's her solution? She goes to relationship number three. And temporarily, she's distracted from the pain. Everything feels fine. And then it comes back. And it continues to cycle. I believe it's also why God designs marriage to be for life and why deceptive sexuality is excruciating. Ephesians 5:31 and 32, Paul writes, "For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." The word Paul uses here for unite can be translated glued together. And guess where God put the part of our brain that controls our genitals? It's immediately adjacent to the brain's bonding attachment center. Do you think that's coincidence? I don't. I think it's because God understands that the sexual relationship is part of the bonding experience and it's meant for life. Paul then goes on and tells us that this intimacy of, quote, one flesh is a profound mystery that he compares to the relationship between Christ and the church. So think about it from an attachment standpoint. A woman leaves her primary attachments of her mother and father and builds a new primary attachment with her husband. And the attachment is super glued together in the one flesh sexual bond of husband and wife. And in time, the primacy of her attachment and connection with her husband surpasses that even of her relationship with her own mother. And then one day, D-Day hits. One day she discovers he's been in a sexual relationship with another woman. Or she finds horrific images on his computer screen, and she is rightly devastated. And I could spend a lot of time here. And I would encourage every man who has ever done this to attend my 22-room intensive, where we dig in deep to understand the real impacts that our actions have caused. Because it's really hard to look at. One of the quotes I use from Dr. Manwala quite often is his statement, just has stuck with me since I first heard it 3 years ago. He said, the hardest thing for the human psyche to do is look honestly at the impact our harmful actions have had on someone we love. We look away. We turn away. We don't look closely. The 22-room intensive is designed to help us look closely and get a depth of understanding of that allows us to understand, one, why the process takes long, and how to better be able to have empathy and compassionate connection with our wives as she continues to heal. Because one thing, doing this kind of work for over almost 25 years now, one thing that always amazes / frustrates me is how often the offending spouse has little to no idea why their spouse is still so hurt, angry, and struggles to move past the pain. I can't tell you how many times I've heard something to the effect of, sure, I screwed up, I made a mistake, I said I was sorry and I won't do it again. Why can't we just put it behind us? Why? Because it's trauma at the deepest level of attachment pain. And that's one of the things that we have to come to grips with. So here are some basic things we need to know about attachment pain. First of all, that it comes from childhood experiences that we often cannot remember. That's our earliest experience of attachment pain. But then second, it also comes from relational breakdowns. Whenever relationships change. And the third thing we need to know is that it results in the deepest pain we experience. And this pain is expressed in all forms of story, art, and music. That's why we made that list earlier, and we'll circle back to that in a little bit. Attachment pain causes deep pain and isolation. And as we looked at in the last session, it leads us to beeps, because we got to find some way to distract ourselves, to numb ourselves away from the pain. So we turn to behaviors, experiences, events, people, and substance to artificially regulate our emotions. So now, circle back to your groups. And I want you to go back and see how many of your songs that you listed are about or at least make references to attachment pain. Sing through or look up the lyrics of any you think might be about attachment pain, and then note how frequently beeps are recommended as a solution. So, share with one another. All right, so what songs really stood out to you as very attachment pain driven? All of them? Give me some specifics. Give me some lyric quotes. Let's talk about attachment pain. YMCA. I was going to say, Jim, you got to come up and do it for us. Okay, challenge for you. Somebody give me a song that isn't attachment pain related. Well, I think that's some secure attachment of repair, but it's definitely based upon the fact that there was pain that started it. Home on the Range is looking for a place where I've got secure attachment. All right? Exactly. To get your it's like a country song. If you want to get your attachment, just play it backwards. All right? So let's talk for a minute, though, about how do we recognize... So here's one of the real struggles with attachment pain. Dr. Carl Lehman has what he describes as the verbal logical explainer. And the verbal logical explainer he describes it as a function in our brain. It's not an actual physical part of our brain, but it's a place where our brain goes whenever it feels pain. And what our brain does whenever it feels pain is it looks out in our immediate circumstance and it says, "You are the fault of my pain." And in marriage, guess where that especially plays out? Our spouse. So I'm feeling something painful. I got this angst inside of me, and my brain is always going to come up with immediate explanations for the pain. The problem, however, is the immediate explanation for the pain is very often, if not most often, a distraction from the real pain. Okay, what our brains learn to do in childhood is an essential survival tactic was whenever we experience something painful, overwhelming, etc., our brain said, that's too painful, that's too much, that's too hot of a potato. So it pushed it off to the side, it covers it up, and it says, let's don't go near that. It's how we had to survive. The problem, however, comes is that pain sits over there and it festers. And as it festers, it continues to grow. And then anytime we're in a situation in life that's even remotely similar or has some connecting points to that, the old pain comes rushing back into our present circumstance, and our brain says, I need a scapegoat for this pain. I need an explanation. So therefore, my brain concludes, I'm feeling this pain because you just criticized me. And our brain works really hard to not go back and look at the original pain. Where that becomes a real problem is that we can spend our whole life chasing around the current crises and not go back and deal with the original pain. Because you see, the only way to really resolve that pain is to go back and let God take us into that pain and bring it out into the light and bring resolution for it. Otherwise, that old pain just keeps flooding back in. And so our verbological explainer works as a protective mechanism that keeps us stuck in our past by avoiding our past. And so one of the real critical skills of recovery is learning how to press through the current circumstance and to look for what is really driving the level of pain we're currently facing. Okay, one of the ways that helps us identify that is think about it numerically. I know numbers are really bad for pain, but doctors make us do it. What are you on a scale of 1 to 10? What's your pain right now? All right. So a classic example I give all the time, and this is a real example from early in our marriage, is Debbie and I are working on painting a bathroom. And I get it all painted, and I'm happy with it, and I'm about ready to come out. And Debbie comes in, and Debbie's got this incredible eye. She can see any place that, that got missed or whatever. And she's genuinely trying to help me. And she's pointing out, can you get that spot, and this spot, and this spot? And my brain goes back to being a 12-year-old boy with a hypercritical father who I could never get anything right with. And so I'm in a meltdown place of, I can't do anything right. I can't please you, etc., etc. Debbie was genuinely just trying to be helpful. She was delighted that we were close to getting the project done. But my brain got focused in on her being critical. And she was the cause of that pain. No. The situation was her pointing out some minor imperfections triggered my old pain. So one way to help you recognize when attachment pain is being stirred up is to ask yourself, does my emotional response fit the crime? Okay, let's be honest, guys. All of us have egos, and when our wives point out places that we have not done a project perfectly, our egos get stirred. Okay? But if we're in a good state, etc., that should be, on a scale of 1 to 100, maybe that's a 13. But if your wife brings up and points something out, and you're not at a 13, you're at a 97, guess what that tells you? This isn't about the momentary, quote, criticism. This is about pain from my past. And so when you can start recognizing over-response, then that becomes a very effective tool to say, okay, Jesus, what's this really about? One of my pet phrases I use all the time is don't waste a good trigger. Whenever you get triggered, whenever you get sent into an overreactive place, in other words, your emotional reaction doesn't really fit the actual circumstance of now, then that provides an opportunity to say, okay, Jesus, what's this really about? Okay? Now, quick note here, especially in a betrayal trauma context. The trauma of betrayal trauma, because of what we talked about earlier about it being that primary attachment trauma, it has the same kind of explosive impact as early childhood trauma. And it has it in part because of the dependency that is there. Because when we assign our primary attachment to someone, it puts us at a level of connection where that connection is not just it's not just a substance in life, it is an essential substance in life. And so the terror of that being ripped away from us is so painful that it brings back similar types of attachment pain, and on top of that, it taps into whatever attachment pain we already had going into it. And so we have to have an awareness that these things that come up for us, especially the intense ones, that we need to look deeper and see what they are. Another aspect of attachment pain that we need to recognize is that oftentimes we are in attachment pain and we don't even realize it. Have you ever woken up on a given day and you just feel, ugh? Or maybe not woken up, maybe just in the middle of your day, you just start realizing that I'm just in a crappy space, I don't feel good, I don't like life, I don't like my partner, I don't like anything. Nothing particular has happened. Well, guess what? That is attachment pain. And that is very often pre-memory attachment pain. Being able to begin to identify it then provides opportunities for us to start addressing it. So when you find yourself in one of those places, in one of those states, you can either just use beeps and try to distract yourself from them, and we know what kind of problems that causes. Or you can dig into it and you can say, okay, Jesus, what's really hurting right now? What do I need in this space? What do I need to be able to comfort myself or experience your comfort in this place? We all have attachment pain, and it comes at us in waves. It comes at us at times when we are not expecting it. But we need to begin to learn the skills of dealing with it. Earlier, we did an exercise of grounding. That's one skill that can help us to start getting out of the past into the present. This next exercise is called Kind Eyes. Diane Poole Heller speaks glowingly about the impact that these exercises have had on people. And I have no reason to doubt that. I believe, in fact, Debbie sent me a deal. She has this amazing week-long retreat intensives. Where was that at? In Ireland or Scotland? Just looks absolutely amazing. You know, it's also like $15,000 plus your travel and whatever, but it would be amazing. But anyway, as I was reading her book and listening to her exercises, like I do with many things, my brain goes like this: wow, that's amazing. And how much more amazing will it be if Jesus is involved in the process? And so I have manualized, I invented a verb as well, I have manualized these exercises. And so I'm going to be taking you through a process that, again, as I stated at the beginning of the seminar, that I believe is helpful, effective, maybe even powerful, even if it's just your imagination at work. And if Jesus is involved, how much more powerful can they be? So I just want to encourage you, open yourself up to the possibility that as you pray, as you ask Jesus to remind you or show you, and something comes to your mind, go with it. And whether you're making it up or Jesus is giving it to you, either way it's going to be beneficial. Okay? People also do these exercises in different ways. Some people want to write down everything that pops in their head. If that's you, use your journal, use your workbook, go for it. Some people just want to close their eyes and let it flow. However works for you, please do what works for you. Okay? So Kind Eyes is an exercise that Diane Poole Heller says is helpful for all attachment styles, but is especially helpful for those with dismissively attached styles, as it helps them open up to the possibility of connections with others. So I want you to begin just by, in your seat, feeling yourself relax into the place you're at. Let's take a couple deep breaths together. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Inhale. And exhale. And inhale. And as you exhale, just let your body just sink into your seat. Feel the weight of your body. Feel your feet on the floor. Keep your eyes opened or closed, whichever feels easier for you. And then ask that simple prayer again. Jesus, please remind me of something I can appreciate. And as you focus on whatever came to your mind, just pay a little attention to what's happening in your body. Now ask Jesus to help you imagine looking into the world and seeing kind eyes looking back at you. Maybe the eyes belong to your spouse or a kindly grandparent, a child, a dog, maybe even Jesus himself. Let him guide you to someone who can offer you their kind eyes effortlessly, even if it's an imaginary character. Now look into their eyes and feel their boundless acceptance and caring as much as you can comfortably take in. Now try to simply notice how it feels to receive this type of gaze. What happens in your body as you look into these kind eyes shining back at you? Noticing this type of kindness or openness is the first step. And for many, it proves quite challenging. Some will experience relief. Others will have old wounds intrude. But take in as much of this gentleness and compassion as possible reach out for and drink in the kindness with your own eyes. What do your eyes feel like in this moment? Do the muscles around your eyes relax? If you feel increased tension, that's okay. But just try to imagine your eyes relaxing back into their sockets, very softly, as if on a hammock or a pillow. What's the experience like in your shoulders, your neck? Get curious about what various parts of your body feel like. Just gently check it out. You can't predict if relief will come first or if residue from old wounds may intrude. Take time to experience your feelings and reactions, regardless of which direction it goes. Now ask Jesus what he wants you to see, hear, feel, or sense in this place. Simple prayer. Jesus, what do you want me to see, hear, feel, or sense? Now ask Jesus, is there anything else here that you have for me? Or is it time to give you thanks? And then feel free to sit in this place or journal or whatever you need to do. And then when you feel like you are done, double check with Jesus. Ask Jesus, are we done? If you're still connecting with Jesus, stay as long as you like. And also feel free to just ask him, if you feel like you're in the middle of something, ask him to hold on to it, to come back to it another time.